Al McFarland. Welcome to another edition of The Conversation with Al McFarland. Today's program is a continuation of yesterday's presentation. We were listening yesterday to the interview I did earlier with Sister Mitchell, Monica Mitchell, and Brother Derek Asante Muhammad. They both are with the Center for Public Policy, Joint Center for Policy, a Black think tank. And we had a wonderful conversation. We continue that today. Before we play that, get back into finishing that interview, I want to invite any of you who are here to jump on the chat or jump on the call. Join the program. We'll put a link up, maybe a QR code. If you want to come on and talk about this presentation by our colleagues at the Joint Center or about what's happening in Minnesota. Big thing last night, Ilhan Omar, Representative Ilhan Omar, was attacked by a person in the audience. Someone jumped up as she was speaking. He had been sitting a few feet in front of her in the front row at this event at the Minneapolis Urban League. And the man had a syringe with some kind of liquid they said was foul smelling and squirted that on her. Security got him, police came, arrested him. He's in jail now. He's been identified, but no one has talked about what the substance was in the syringe, but we're hearing that she's okay. But if you want to talk about that, what does that mean? What kind of environment is producing craziness like that? I'll find the articles that are up so far with Associated Press, and we'll share those after this event. But I'd love to have your comments, your take on that incident, on the variety of things here at Ground Zero, Minneapolis, and let's have the discussion. So check out Sister Monica Mitchell and Brother Derek Asante Muhammad. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Systems, and as we work and advocate to rebuild them, close those critical gaps and build them back in a better way. But in the meantime, looking to local and state governments, looking to community partners, looking to, private organizations, foundations. The question has been generally raised as it relates to philanthropy, what role they play in this moment in time, funding that work so that the data can still be collected, so that there is still a repository that we can look back to and build from. And I'll turn it over to Diedrich.
Yeah, I think you said it. The only thing I'll just note is that, and in the State of the Dream report, 2026, after every section, employment, technology, workforce, entrepreneurship, we have an opportunities and risks section highlighting, the risks that these changes in 2025 have created and the opportunities to engage and deal with these changes about how to have a better future. So again, just point people to the report to get more specific opportunities and risk in each area.
Well, let's talk about the opportunities. My question is, how do we, in the face of the retreat of the federal government in areas that we think are important for information and analysis, how do we not lose momentum and not lose our voice, not lose our capacity to shape public policy because of the knowledge we're creating and sharing? And that speaks to the mission of the Joint Center, as you indicated, doing research and analysis for over 50 years. So, this report is so important, but the system and process for creating report analysis is important. Where do you see that going? How critical is both this report and your mission right now?
Yeah, I'm hoping that this report helps further the mission of Joint Center. But, I also want to note, it's kind of paradoxical, but 2025 was also a year of more Blacks in Congress, in the House and Senate than ever before, more Black mayors, more Black state legislators, right? So we also we had lower levels of Black unemployment than we regularly had in the beginning of 2025. We had higher income a higher wealth. Still, still majority of African Americans in asset poverty, still a majority of African Americans not homeowners, still many issues. But historically speaking, I think that's one of the positive things about being in an organization that's been around for 55 years. I'm not only looking at the current moment, I'm looking at historically where we are. So we're also at a place with, like I said, more Black elected officials, stronger economically in many ways. So it really is our time to say, okay, we have greater analysis, we have means of communication. Let's note where we've made progress, where we continue to build progress. I think Monica laid a great kind of outline of, if you don't control a federal institution, you might be able to control a city institution. You might be able to control a local institution. You might be able to control your local your local association. Wherever you have power, you need to utilize that power. Recognize where we are as a country, where we are as Black people, and what are the positive steps that you can take to continue to move us forward. And again, this is why I like to base this with Dr. King. They had much less power, much less opportunity, whether it's 1955 or 1967. But with that little bit of power and with a great assault upon them, they then paved the way for major pieces of legislation to change. And so, that's what we need to do now, is set up and have clear the policy directions we want to go in. So when we actually do have even greater power or opportunity at the federal level, we can push this agenda through.
What do you think?
That's really where the Joint Center started in its history, was recognizing the power of Black local elected officials, and I think that's a space that to Deidre's point, we have to continue to think about. So if the CFPB is not collecting information, what power do the state attorneys general have in exercising their existing authority to enforce consumer protection laws? Or municipal governments, universities, large nonprofits, how can they, expand their explicit commitments to inclusive hiring to offset those losses? So the power, we have to look, if the door closes, we've got to look to the windows.
What are you looking at as far as the midterms coming up in November? What's the strategy from your point of view? What's the work required of our community so that we can both resist the assault on democracy and on our people as well, but also that we can move forward? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I'll note, one thing I was excited about when I came to Joint Center is I had worked at organizations like the National Action Network under Reverend Sharpton. I'd worked at the NAACP, worked at different organizations. And I think Joint Center has a particular lane to play. And that really is kind of the research policy analysis. We're not so much a get out the vote space. We're not so much, even electing particular officials, though we do strong advocacy for Black representatives in different types of appointee positions. But, so we at Joint Center are taking our role as we are working on developing a policy platform. We worked in the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation to do a policy handbook. We have this State of the Dream 2026 report. We really want to kind of arm the people, arm the advocacy groups, armed elected officials with clear analysis of where we are, some of the losses that we've had, some of the gains we've made, and what type of policy areas can they either campaign on and hopefully, most importantly, enact when they come to power. So that's kind of the unique space of the Joint Center versus some other organizations that should be rallying now on how to get the vote out and how to mobilize elections to move certain candidates forward.
What does technology available now that wasn't available a generation ago mean for the work that we're doing? I think that before our knowledge of our work in community could be isolated, sort of managed knowledge, broad knowledge, or maybe our connection to each other hampered a little bit by our having to filter our thoughts, our actions through the three major networks, right? ABC, CBS, NBC, and the few national newspapers. We obviously have always had a subterranean communication system, the Black Press of America, our radio stations, our churches, et cetera. But now the technology with YouTube and other platforms mean all of us have access to more information than we ever had. How do we exploit that for the movement forward, and how do we build a system of governance among us, or can we or should we, that protects us and prepares us for the eventual collapse of the iniquitous system that President Trump, from my point of view, represents.
Monica, do you want to start that? Or do you want me to start?
Go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, we keep saying opportunities and risk, right? And so there's many opportunities and risk with this current, where we are with technology and where we are with communications. I think part of the risk is that, that we are the media systems is shifting, right? And so there is in some spaces more opportunities to hear more different voices, whether it's through Blue Sky, or what used to be called Twitter or X, or whether it's through TikTok, or whether it's through Instagram, Facebook, a whole host of things. I do have some concerns that some of the Black institutions that we have created for communications and media aren't being set up to have a space in this new era of technology. So that is a concern. I'm glad to see Black influencers, coming up in different spaces, and African Americans strongly utilize this technology and are deeply engaged. And so we're going to have to, just as we did with radio, just as we did with newspapers, just as we did with blogs, have to coordinate amongst ourselves and make sure that there's strong, fact-based Black journalism that is getting there and is not just getting lost in the really, like, there's so much media out there, no person can consume it. So how do you develop trusted media when whole new outlets are being created every few months, few years? And so this is a challenge we face, and we have a director of technology, Danielle Davis, who is really doing a lot of analysis around social media policy, because again, policy really creates the opportunities and the norms of what the future is going to be like. So as we're changing everything, the economy, as we're changing media, we have to make sure that we are advocating for ourselves to make sure we have spaces to engage and educate so we can be political power. Because one of the founders of Joint Senator Lewis Martin came from the Black press, right? There's always been this connection of you can't have strong political empowerment if you don't have strong Black communications and media.
And then I'll just add to what Diedrich mentioned. A lot of organizations were born out of the convenings that Joint Center had, including the NABJ. And so
National Association of Black Journalists, just for those who don't know.
So there's always been this understanding of the hand-in-hand relationship that Black media will play in advancing policies that support Black communities. I think that, in a lot of ways, the changing media landscape has helped democratize accessibility of information and media, not only to access it, but also to provide it. And at the same time, it's created opportunities to craft a very one-sided view, if that is what you want to do, of the way that the world is, and create, sort of echo chambers in a way. And I think it's really important that, we intentionally also seek out opinions that differ from our own. We may find that there are pathways of shared understanding that may surprise us. And I think, one of the things that, and Al, you're on the ground, but, as I was snowed in and really just catching up on the news and of course, the two recent killings in Minnesota, particularly with Mr. Preddy, there has been a sort of a more across the board response, even from gun advocacy groups and others, that groups that you may not always see on the same side of an issue. And so I think it's really important, as we select and recognize our ability to access media, we also recognize that, there are still things that connect us. There are, even if we believe that someone may have differences of opinion, and if we're ever going to move folks who have differences of opinion, we have to learn how to listen to them.
Let me ask you both to reflect on Minnesota 2020, George Floyd, and then do the through line to Renee Good and Mr. Preddy, who was just killed. How are those things connected? We were calling the murder of George Floyd and the response to it, which was global, a reflection point, signaling a change in the relationship, the understanding in all communities, philanthropy and government, in Minnesota, in the country, and globally. But then here we are with the next iteration of oppression. And I think the feeling right now is that these activities and what may happen today or tomorrow are going to further ratchet up this apparent inflection point that we're in as a country. So how do you contextualize, what's the data say about movement we've made since George Floyd, and where we likely will be, I'd say, leapfrogging to in the future based on the impact and the glaring sort of exposure of contradictions in the ability of a government to use force against American citizens in this case. What do you think?
Yeah, I was just had a conversation, an interview this morning with a reporter from the Wall Street Journal, was talking to me about the increase in Black unemployment and was noting that, it's not just what happened last year, but that Bloomberg research did analysis around how after, George Floyd, and there was a lot of corporations that said they're, recognizing racial inequality and they're going to do things to address that within a year, they started cutting back in terms of their diversity programs and in terms of their hiring. You started seeing a decline in Blacks in a lot of these top corporate jobs. And so I just bring that up to, note that, really, I'll put forward, I think the failure to institutionalize the type of change we needed before George Floyd, but George Floyd highlighted, has led us to today, right? It's not just, the brutal way that ICE is implementing new immigration policies. It's the fact that for decades or for generations, America has allowed its police forces to brutally implement criminal justice policies that have harmful effects upon individuals and lead to murder. And so, I'm hoping that, that these kind of ongoing messages will push us to, can we finally now, I want to have mass protests and I want people to say things like Black Lives Matter and, and there needs to be, an end to a brutal enforcement around immigration policy. But, can we really make the substantive institutional change in police forces? Can police forces really be there to protect and serve, which would generally mean you don't just run up on people and mace them or throw them to the ground or quickly lock them up. That's not the way, police agencies in many other countries are there to serve. And I think you're even seeing in the United States, many high-ranking police officials are saying, this is not the way to engage community. And I think that's what's been so challenging is we've moved what was a challenging situation with our police force, and we've brought in the military, who are even less equipped to deal with U.S. citizens in a respectful, civil manner, because that's not what they're trained to do. So, I always try to have some type of hope, but I'm hoping that, as we continue to peel back and see the need for deep change that will actually now not just say Black Lives Matter, remember George Floyd, but actually pass forth some of the legislation that was never implemented, even after the horrific death that the whole world watched George Floyd. And now we're seeing, over the last couple of days.
I think it also highlights the intersectionality of the issues. Over policing is not, while Black communities may be disproportionately impacted, we're not, it does not end there. And so when you don't have the policies that prevent it and the guardrails, over policing is not an individual police officer issue. And so, demonizing the particular police officer and not addressing the system in which it exists is not the solution. And so, just to double click on everything Deidre said, the through lines are, it literally gives you shivers. I think all three happen within a 2 mile or so radius of each other.
Where I'm sitting now, I'm sitting 3 maybe 3 minutes from where the Venezuelan gentleman was shot, not killed. And I'm sitting 7 minutes from where the two people were murdered, both Brother Preddy and also Sister Good. So it's close and it's personal because you can't drive to your regular grocery store, to your dry cleaners, to your Starbucks without now thinking about what you're going to run into, where there be motorcades, where there be ICE actions, and it's having an impact. You know, when I was watching the video of the Hmong gentleman in St. Paul, you may have seen this one, who was dragged out of his house with looked like a tablecloth. He was underwear and sandals or tennis shoes, only to be released an hour later, right? He was, but that brutality. And I remember looking at this young white woman on the side, screaming. So I'm saying, what will this trauma do in this child's life for the rest of her life? And how many children and parents, you know, are being traumatized by this experience? So it's just an observation, but go ahead, I interrupted you.
No, I mean, you're exactly right. And the trauma is both what happens to the actual folks who are impacted, and then the intimidation of those who see themselves in those actions as well, and even, you know, children being used as bait for, you know, for these scenarios as well. There is a reverberation of you know, of trauma that these tactics cause. And I think, you know, the question, I mean, we've already seen two former presidents, you know, come out this weekend and really, you know, I think call to, you know, the soul of our democracy, and, you know, and ask the question, you know, we do live in a democracy, and as we're looking at the 250th anniversary of, you know, of this country, and as we look at our role and our ancestors' role in helping this country become more of what its promise was, you know, what's this generation's role in that ongoing promise? You know, as Mrs. King pointed out, and several others, you know, this freedom is a fight for each generation.
Let me close asking you to think about the international aspects of both your work and our work as a community. And as a people, are the solutions only inside the framework of the United States, or are the solutions that we seek necessarily global in nature? Do we need to think as an expansive diaspora? Do we need to redefine and recreate relationships with the rest of the world that are different? What do we mean? I mean that my generation grew up being ashamed of Africa, being ashamed of being called Black at first, you know, but we emerged and evolved over the years to where we're getting a different understanding about the African diaspora, the presence of Africans throughout the hemispheres and in the continent. And is there something about that relationship that is part of our securing a future for Black people and for humanity differently? I say that because it seems like there is an attempt by Trump, at least in his mind, to consolidate and create community among the mega rich, the super elite, basically Europe, North America, and probably begrudgingly the Asians. Well, we're not in that equation at all, except for sources for both extraction and the usurping of our resources and power in our lives. What do you think? Am I going down the wrong rabbit hole here? Is there?
Well, yeah, I'll put forward. I mean, one, I don't think the Trump administration has put forth a comprehensive or understandable framework that would allow for even, you know, wealthy European countries. I think a lot of wealthy European countries, even not so wealthy like Greenland or Canada, feel quite assaulted by some of the things that are happening. So I don't think it hasn't been that strategic. I will note, you know, but go back to the kind of a core aspect of your question. America's always been an international place. So the Western Europeans coming here, Eastern European coming, Africans being enslaved, being brought here, indigenous people here, Latin American immigrants, increasingly Asian immigrants. So it's always been an international space. And Black people in the United States, African Americans have always been an international people, right? Whether, it wasn't, people I think generally know that the Black freedom movement has inspired the world. But the world Black freedom movement has also inspired Black Americans. Like Dr. King was inspired by the independence of African nations in the 50s and 60s, and Kwame Nkrumah, what have you. It was, Marcus Garvey from Jamaica who came to the U.S., built the United Negro Improvement Association, the largest Black organization all across the world, right? So there's always been a Black diaspora, kind of Pan-Africanist connection, with Black Americans. And I think, we will continue to see that. We will continue to see, all right, what type of policies in foreign countries are something that we could learn from and can help us, and what type of activism and organizing and policies in the U.S. can help other countries. So I'm sure that type of conversation engagement will continue. And there's much more opportunity now. I see many more, I think Pan-Africanism used to be something that someone would write about and you read about in a small Black bookstore somewhere. I see on YouTube all the time, Black youth, young adults going to different countries and saying, oh, wow, this is different than what I had heard. This is what I expected. There are other opportunities, other places. And so I believe that will continue and grow in the 21st century.
Let me have you close with marching orders, Monica and Dedrick. What are the instructions for our community? What are the marching orders from this conversation?
Monica, why don't you go and touch on that last point if you want to as well?
Sure. So one thing that I just wanted to say from the prior point and to the question you just asked is that, Dedrick mentioned, Pan-Africanism. I think the solidarity infrastructure is really important for us to think about today. The mutual aid networks, legal observer training, the modernized, Al, to your question about sort of modern technology, signal chats and other ways that folks have leaned into those historic lessons and capitalizing on those lessons today. I think that they're going to be crucial. Our State of the Dream report highlights both the opportunities and the risks that exist if we're not paying attention, or if we let the regression linger into a sense of normalcy. It's almost embarrassing how quickly things can become normal to us in this day and age, particularly because of how fast things move. Where a couple months ago, it was abnormal to have National Guard members deployed in a city. At this point, many folks may see it as normal. And it's only been a few months, and so change as it happens can quickly become normalized. And I think we have to look at ourselves and and ask that question of us as citizens. Do we allow those those rights to be entrenched, and what do we do about that, and the risks that are associated for that, not only for us but for future generations, and again the opportunities. I don't think that we're in a moment of hopelessness, and I think the fact that you had thousands of Minnesotans gathering in negative 40-degree weather demonstrates the hope that that also exists in this moment in time.
Yeah, and I'll just put forward, just to kind of wrap up, that it's important now that we don't feel alone, right? And so it's important now that you find some organizations, some communities that you can connect with in person, because I still think that in-person contact is essential. But then it's also important to find, all right, what are the media outlets that are highlighting the issues you care about? Where can you get different Black sources of information, and trying different things through YouTube, through websites, these types of things, because a lot is changing rapidly. And one thing Joint Center is trying to do is trying to be a place where you can gather this information in an understandable way, and then it'd be accessible to you so you can utilize it and activate on it in your local community. So whether Joint Center is the place you go, Joint Center for Political Economic Studies is the place you go, whether it's the Urban League, whether it's the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, whatever, whether it's your paper there, and people from across the country should be looking at that. Find sources of news that you think are important to you and your interest, and that'll only help you in the future action that we're all going to need to take.
Diedrich Asante Muhammad, Associate Fellow at the Institute of Policy Studies.
Actually, real quick, I'm president of the Joint Center for Political
No,
Economic
he was saying IPS, Diedrich. You are.
Oh, I see. Actually, okay, I was Associate Fellow of IPS.
And
right,
President of the Joint Center.
Gotcha.
For Political and Economic Studies, which is America's Black think tank. Thank you so much for being here. And the Executive Director of the Joint Center, Monica Mitchell, thank you for being here. Let me close with the last paragraph of your op-ed that appears in today's issue of Insight News and other media across the country, the op-ed distributed by otherwords.org. You say, Diedrich, as Dr. King stated, we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt, but urgent action is required. Unless we act deliberately, economic and racial inequalities will become entrenched, resulting in generational loss. The core question is whether we will move beyond our nation's history of racism, materialism, and militarism, and, as Dr. King urged, embrace the fierce urgency now to advance equity. That's a powerful statement to leave on. Thank you both so very much. I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland. What a wonderful, wonderful interview, joined by my friend and colleague, James Trice. He's the founder and CEO of the Public Policy Project here in Twin Cities. James, thanks for hanging out with me again. We started this yesterday and promised to continue the presentation today, and also that you and I would chop it up, sort of talk about public policy in general, talk about what's happening in Minnesota specifically, but also be here to connect with people that are engaging with us online or on any of the social media platforms, and talk about these items, these issues. Big Cheese has already been talking about, and we thank you, the Big Cheese, for your regular showing up and regular commenting in the chat. I think you spark a lot of thought, and that's a wonderful thing. And so I'm inviting you to come on screen with us if you have the capability of doing that, but otherwise just doing what you're doing where you are. I'm going to put up some of your notes that you were sharing during the presentation, and then James, you and I can kind of respond. So just kick out, you say that Black elected officials have done nothing for the Black community, especially the Black Congressional Caucus and the NAACP, because they've prioritized illegal immigrants over the Black community. You go on to say that the Black grassroots community has mobilized foundational Black American delineation and a code of conduct that has been effective, delineating individuals and groups that have been a disadvantage to the FBA progress. I'd love to hear you say more about that. I disagree with you, but I think it's a wonderful conversation that we have to have. And let's see, one more comment. You say the George Floyd incident and the protesting on behalf of illegal immigrants is not the same because protesters are interfering and impeding ICE agents from performing their duties. Okay, so let's stop there, and we'll keep posting the Big Cheese. Thank you for the comments. We're gonna, if you want to come on the screen and talk, the QR code is on top of the screen. Love to have you jump on and make your argument and talk to me and talk between us, really. James, what do you think? What's on your mind? Starting me where you want to.
Wow, it's a lot. First of all, thank you so much, Al, for inviting me to participate with you in this. Again, and thank you for your work you do in making sure that our community has the accurate information that we need in order to inform us, because there's multiple media outlets that are sharing so much, and it's a lot. I mean, social media, whatever, you can get a lot of information from various sources, some of it accurate, some of it, a lot of it inaccurate. And so I thank you for sharing accurate information with us that we can count on and rely on. So thank you for that. And you're not the only one. There's others that are doing the same thing, but specifically because I'm on this show. That's a lot to think about. And let me tackle the first one, that George Floyd protests and the immigration protests are not the same. Technically, they're not the same because this immigration and then there's the oppression of this lynching, I call it, of George Floyd. Technically, it's not the same because we're talking about a lynching of a black man, and then we're talking about immigration enforcement. However, it's the same in that you don't see ICE agents going after European immigrants. They're only going after immigrants of color, black, brown, Latino, Mexican, whatever. And there's a lot of, and people are not talking about this, there is a lot of European immigrants from Russia, Croatia, Sweden, so forth, that are here, and they overstay their visa, and they're here illegally, and nothing is done about them. So the similarities are in that the oppression continues against black and brown bodies. So that is the similarities, and that we need to keep in mind. And so that when we see this happening, we need to take it. When we see ICE coming in to our communities and doing these horrific, violent taking of people out of their homes and so forth, that's reminiscent of slave catchers that were approved by the Fugitive Slave Act back in 1793 and 1850. The Fugitive Slave Act that allowed them to do that, and they were going after black people. So the similarities in this, that George Floyd was what George Floyd to me was lynched. He was murdered, brutally murdered, for the world to see. And what we're seeing now, the world is seeing ICE agents who are, again, some liken it to the Gestapo, but I liken it to slave catchers that are picking up black, dark-skinned people, letting them know that America will forever be white. That's what they want. They want America to continue to be white. And so therefore that's the similarities. And so whenever we see other groups of black and brown people being oppressed, we as black people need to stand and support them as well. And say, this is the same. We're not going to take it as an isolated incident, or these are separate. They're not separate. It's still oppression of black and brown bodies.
So, did you watch the Urban League event last night? Did you watch that on? Let's talk about that for a second. We'll come back and with our comments. But I think I have the article pulled up here. I'll share a part of it, and I don't know if you've got that to show as well, but I have it on my screen, Jared. I have an article here that was in Newsweek. I think it's published maybe an hour ago. So this is reporting on what they reported. I watched the event on YouTube myself last night. It says a man has been arrested after Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar was sprayed with an unknown substance during a town hall in Minnesota on Tuesday. Andy Kazmierzak, 55, was arrested and booked into Hennepin County Jail for third-degree assault. A spokesperson for the Minneapolis Police Department confirmed to Newsweek. It was not immediately clear if he had an attorney. So I don't know, we might try to find that and show that, but it was really frightening, horrific.
DHS Secretary Kristi Noem must resign or face impeachment. I don't know.
Oh my God. Oh my God, he sprayed something on her.
I need a napkin to know nothing. No, we will continue.
No. You need to go get checked.
No, we will continue. These fucking assholes are not going to get away with it.
You need to go get checked. No, I don't know what.
So that's great. Let me come back in. And another article that was Newsweek that started with an ABC report says During the town hall in Minneapolis, a man charged the podium where Representative Omar was giving remarks, appeared to squirt a liquid at her, and then was tackled to the ground by a security guard after a brief struggle. Identified as 55-year-old Anthony Kaz Mirzak, arrested and booked. He squirted her with the substance that was in a syringe. Obviously, the incident sparked cries of alarm for those who were in the audience, but the Congresswoman did not appear to be injured. She said she was going to finish her remarks, and she did. Kudos and bravo. She actually, James, when I saw this, we just saw it a second ago, she looked like she was going to go after the guy.
Well, she did.
Didn't back up.
No, she did not.
She didn't back up at all.
No, she did not.
What you think of that?
If I was in the fight with her, I would love her to be with me if I was in a fight with somebody, because she went right after him. He sprayed her, she went right after him. Now, was that smart for her to do? Because we don't know what else he had. But she's feisty, and that means she's a fighter for us. And I appreciate her leadership. However, I do think we need to make sure that she has security around her, but not only her, Keith and others. They need to have maximum security. There should have been some people standing for that guy should not have gotten on the stage. So in future meetings, we need to make sure she's okay. Also,
he was actually sitting on the front row. He was sitting on the front row, right in front of her.
And so even that, right, there should be,
some kind of security,
flanked with security, particularly during this time, because this is the Trump administration and these white nationalists, these folks, no holds barred, man. They're the ones inciting the violence. They're the ones that are bringing the fight. We're resisting their tyranny, and so she should be flanked with security from this moment on. Keith should be as well. Governor Walz, I'm sure he has a security detail. At no time should they be out in public without security protecting them. So we need to make sure she's protected. And then I think, I don't know what the report is now, she should go to the doctor to figure out what he sprayed on her, because we never know. I mean, there's all kinds of chemical.
Well, theoretically, they have the vial, they have the syringe. Yeah,
chemical warfare, whatever. So we never know what the long-term effects of what he sprayed on. We don't know what that is. Ricin or whatever else, right? We don't know.
Well, it reminds you of the Polish head of state that Russians set up and killed through chemical.
Yes.
Remember that a few years ago?
I don't remember the exact details, but I remember that. Yeah.
So that kind of stuff is done. It's done. And so it's
and I later in the day from these folks who are in alignment with Donald Trump's ideology to use whatever they can to harm us. And we need watchful. I mean, they shot Alex Pretty 10 times. 10. Yeah. And what 5? My report that I get was 5 seconds. 10 times. Really? They spare no no holds barred. They spare nothing within their arsenal to inflict harm and danger on us, because they want to defend their right to continue to oppress Black and brown and marginalized people. That's their agenda at any cost.
Later in the day, so that meeting with Ilhan Omar and Bobby Joe Champion was at the Urban League here on Plymouth Avenue. Later in the day, Angela Rye and I think Bakari Sellers and their partner did another town hall or community session up at the Capri Theater. And one of the presenters, among many, Derek Johnson of the National NAACP was there. He was actually at the event with, I think, at the Urban League as well. But also Keith Ellison was there. And I don't know if we found that clip, but if we didn't, I can tell you what he said very clearly. And what he clearly said was that we have, as a state, the power to charge any person that we believe broke our law. And I thought that was wonderful and powerful clarification of the role of the state. He also was very careful in not overstepping or not being too public, but he just wanted to have people be assured that just because J.D. Vance said these people had complete, absolute immunity,
Right.
it's not necessarily so. They don't have it in the state. I think Jared's got it pulled up there. If that's it, Jared, we can play that, at least a little of it anyway. Yeah, go ahead. And this is like, we can talk kind of as we listen to it.
I said
Kind
I'm
of a summary
channeling Angela
of what's
Davis.
going
That's who
on.
I was named after. I yield the floor to the Attorney General.
Thank you, Angela. Hey, thank you guys for being out here tonight. I can't think of a more important place for you to be. Our country and our state and our city in this very moment has been the site of the largest single escalation of ICE agents, of immigration officials in the history of the United States. Ordinarily, ICE has about 100 people for the five-state area. Now, they have 4,000 ICE agents for just the state of Minnesota, which is a 4,900% increase. I don't have to tell you what's been happening. You live here, you've been seeing it, you've been experiencing it yourself. But this blanket of attack is certainly not normal, not justified, and is not legal.
So that's cool. That's great. Well, when we come back, and maybe Jared, you can sort of monitor it and wind it a few. I wanted to hear the statement where he was assuring people that the state has the power, local government has the power to both investigate ultimately and to charge. So kind of like that. But you know, James, you got an article that's going to be appearing in Insight in the upcoming edition, I believe, and online, I think today or tomorrow. You want to share what the a couple of paragraphs from the article, your lead theme, and talk about the concerns that you're bringing forth from your public policy lens.
Yes, thank you, Al, and I thank you for publishing my piece. I thought long and hard about this because I was struggling. There's a lot going on, a lot of people out, and I commend the protesters and us that are resisting out in the cold, bitter cold. And there's I unfortunately am unable to be out there because of health reasons, but I join in solidarity with the brothers and sisters that are out there doing this. And I wanted to know, I said, I need to do something. I need to participate in some way, shape, or form, whether it's giving, if I have money to give to whatever. But I felt like I needed to write something, to say something, to contribute to the protest. And when I thought about this, I looked at what's going on, and I said, and I hear over and over again, pundits and people on news stations, whatever, saying, well, this is not us. This is not America. This is not who we are. Well, I would disagree. I would submit to you, this is America. This is who we are. And my piece, I want to really highlight that and drive this home, that this is America. This is not an aberration. This is not an anomaly. This is who America's always been from day one.
This is a revelation.
Yes, it's a revelation. It just continues to, it continues to, resurface. It's still always been there. It's always been under the surface. Even when Barack Obama was president, it was still there. It was there. 1526 is what the foundational Black Americans say that slavery actually began, not 1619. That slaves were actually brought over in 1526 in what is now Georgia and South Carolina. That's what they contend. I don't disagree with them whenever, but it's always been violent. It's always been oppressive. It's always done these things, but in different ways. The same thing that's going on, although there's a lot more ICE agents here for just people of color now. They're not picking up European immigrants, man. Just be clear about this. They're picking up Black and brown people, dark-skinned people. That's what they're doing.
And the two white people that they killed because they were interfering.
They were interfering. And let's be clear about that. And my heart and prayers go out to the family of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. But before there was a Renee Good, before there was an Alex Preddy, there was, a Michael Schwerner, and there was Andrew Goodman. Those two who was with James Chaney when they tried to register people to vote. And the sheriff and the Ku Klux Klan murdered them. What I say in my piece is that they're willing to get their means across, to get their purposes across, their end agenda across. They're willing to kill black, brown, and white folks if white folks stand in the way. Well, they matter of fact said that Fugitive Slave Act. If white people get in the way, they will meet the same kind of terror that we're gonna inflict on black and brown people. But my point is this: the piece essentially says this is not new. This is who America has always been, and not to minimize what's going on. So don't get me wrong. I don't want people to minimize what's going on, but I want you to understand that this is not new. The question is, what are we going to do about it? What have we always done? We've always resisted. We always challenged the system. We always continue to fight against it. And the piece is to encourage you that this is not new. This is what it's always been. So don't be shaken. Don't be afraid. Don't acquiesce. Don't bow. Don't bend. Continue to fight. Continue to resist. Like all of us have always done from day one. Always Denmark Vesey, Nat Turner, and all the others who did the Maroons. All of them, all the way back then, always resisted this oppressive system. Now, we've made some strides. We've made some improvements incrementally. But even each time we made some strides, there's always been some caveat. Like, the 13th Amendment was passed to abolish slavery. But if I read the 13th Amendment, right, it says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for a crime wherefore the party shall be duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any other place subject to the jurisdiction, meaning that slavery is abolished except the person is tried and due for a crime, duly tried and convicted of a crime. Now think about
you make all black people criminals, right?
Thank you. Now they're gonna make all black people criminals. So look at the prison industrial complex. Look at the overrepresentation of black people per our population that's filling the prisons. And I don't know if people know this. Now I'm gonna just point it out. It's not in my piece, but I think I need to mention this. Private prison owners, who are the corporations, are suing states. I don't know if people knew this. They're suing states because they have a contract with states that say that either you will keep our prison population at a certain level or you will pay us. So what's happening is these different states that are passing these bills and to minimize the prison population in ways, meaning like lowering the amount of time that people have to do for petty misdemeanor, to other laws that really curb the criminality of people, just kind of like let's kind of lower this prison thing. What's happening is corporations are getting upset who own these prisons are saying, hold on, our prison population is decreasing, meaning the way we do business. I mean, and people understand the prison industrial complex is that they use now prison labor to do the work of these corporations, so they don't want to have to hire people to pay them wages. Now they pay the prisoners, well, I don't know how much they get, 20, 30 cents, $1.50. I don't know what the cost is, but it's far cheaper than hiring regular citizens to do their work. So private prisons are hiring prisoners to do the work, which are mostly black and brown people. And so what's happening is the prison population is going down, and now these corporations are suing states to either pay us or now refill our prisons. I mean, think about that. So when the 13th Amendment got passed, there was a caveat. The caveat is, except the person be tried and duly convicted. So we're going to continue our institution of slavery, but we're just going to be a little slick about it, right? That's always been the fight, right? The 14th Amendment was passed to say everybody is citizens, like all persons born and naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge this privilege. However, then they passed Plessy versus Ferguson, right? Separate but equal, but it wasn't, right? And Jim Crow laws that came into effect between shortly after slavery, 1877, 10 years after slavery, Jim Crow laws lasted to 1965, right? So they allowed citizens to treat people as non-citizens. They allowed white citizens to treat black folks. They couldn't go nowhere, couldn't drink out of the same water faucet, all these types of things. So I want to be clear about you, clear with everyone. the civil rights laws and these laws to keep oppression from happening to us, to deal with injustices, to deal with inequities, these laws were not passed. The civil rights laws were not passed. They didn't fight civil rights laws, oppression laws. They didn't fight for civil rights to change the minds of people. It wasn't to change people's minds. It wasn't to change white people's minds about what they think about us. It was to say, we're not going to allow what you think about us to keep us from having a productive way of life. Not going to keep us from moving about the cabin freely. If you can move around about the cabin freely, we can move about the cabin freely. And I want people to look at my piece, go online. Al, you can give the link.
InsightNews.com. Yeah.
Right. But I end with my piece with this, and I want us to be encouraged, because I want us to know this is not new. We've always fought. And this is the last thing. I'm going to read this to you from my piece. And
Sure.
This is what I say in closing. It says, let us draw strength from this conviction, knowing that the struggle for justice and equity is not in vain. Our perseverance is fueled by our faith, unity, and the unwavering belief that transformation will come. As we face diversity, let us refuse to yield. Together, we will resist. We will insist on justice. We will stand unapologetically, undaunted, unbroken, and united until the day arrives when oppression and whiteness are relegated to history. Till we, in the path ahead, demands courage and solidarity. And with our eyes fixed on justice, we will see America become what is promised to be, what it promised to be. Until then, whenever injustice, tyranny, and oppression occur, we will continue to say, this is America. This is not an aberration. And I said I wanted to end with that, but I do want us to understand it. Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, owned more than 600 slaves, right? He was a prolific writer. He wrote everything down, everything. He wrote down how many cans of food he had in his cabinet. He wrote everything down. He was always writing. And ironically, he wrote something here. And I want people to hear this. And he wrote this in one of his pieces called the Notes on the State of Virginia in 1778. And he said, indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just and that his justice cannot sleep forever, that considering numbers, nature, and natural means only, a revolution of the wheel of fortune, an exchange of situation is among possible events, that it may become probable by supernatural interference, the Almighty has no attribute which can take side with us in such contests. In other words, he was saying that this can turn around for white folks. This can turn around for us. What we've done to these people, God's justice is not going to sleep, that he is going to, at some point, vindicate the oppressed. Thomas Jefferson said this in the state of it. And so I don't know if he even consciously said this or if he came out of his spirit, understanding that he knew deep in his spirit that what he was doing was wrong. And that God,
I think all of them know it was wrong,
Yes.
no matter
Yes.
what they told themselves, no matter how they couched it in the garb of Christian mission, of
Yes.
evangelism, justifying the enslavement of human beings and the brutality and murder and theft that went along with that,
Yes.
the trauma that we still suffer from today. The trauma hasn't left our bodies and our spirits. We still are suffering with that. And, the challenging thing is that I think we've demonstrated this, but we will continue to demonstrate it, I believe, that his fear, Jefferson's fear, kind of sums how most people react, even the progressives and
Yes.
the so-called, enlightened people. Somewhere in their mind is a thought that we will have to pay
Yes.
what was done. And none of us are asking for the payment that they fear they have to pay.
No.
What we're talking about is how do we, number one, keep your cruelty from the continued destruction and
Yes.
displacement of our community, culture, society, opportunity, and that as we develop ways to resist and to rebuff that are not aimed at destroying you, but simply allowing us to live, by necessity, you will have to change. And
Oh,
the
yeah.
change that you're going to experience is going to make you human, maybe for the first time, or certainly a better human being. That's what you are resisting. And our presence will both reveal, reflect, and demand a different sense of what it means to be a human being on planet, I believe. Well, look, we're out of time.
I
Go
believe
ahead.
that, yes. Are you out of time? I just think
We got-
they
we-
think
go
that
ahead,
we
let's keep
have
going, though.
they think that we have a vengeance dream.
Mhm.
We don't have a vengeance dream. You just have, you just have a vengeance nightmare. You think we want to do to you what you have done to us. We don't want that. We just want you to leave us alone. Leave us alone, and we're good. That's it. Leave us alone. We don't have no dream to get back at you, white man. That's not what we want. We just want you to leave us alone.
James, I have you come back, man. Just hang out with me. This has been a good conversation. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the work you do. Check out James's work, his article at insightnews.com. I'm not sure if it's posted yet, but it will be hopefully before the day is over. And it'll be in one of the upcoming print editions of Insight News. I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland. We want you to be involved. So we like and thank the Big Cheese and others who have been posting. We want to get to where our chat is robust, rich, live. So African American Anonymous, thank you for your contribution. And Dora Jones, thank you for your contribution in the chat. We'll see you next time. Take care.
That's